We're back here on Ceraulo Sports Talk, and joining the show for the third time, he's a color analyst for Westwood One, covers the Eagles, former NFL offensive lineman Ross Tucker. Ross, thanks so much for joining the show.
Of course, Joe. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course, Ross. The timing here is incredible because last year we had you on, and it was the day after Tom Brady retired for the first time. So now I've got you on the day that Tom Brady retires, what seems like officially for the second and final time. Ross, this has to be it, right? Tom Brady has to be done for real this time.
I would be shocked if he came back this time. Yeah, I think after what happened last year, I think if he thought that was a possibility, I just don't think he would have announced it now. I just don't see why he would have announced it now. There was no compelling reason for him to put that video out this morning. So I would be very, very surprised if he decided to come back and play. I'm not going to say it's 0%, but very, very low. I think he knows how bad that would look. And I think he is the type of person that would not have put the video out this time, the second time, without being sure about it.
How much do you think Tom not being able to break his own news last year influenced him coming back? Do you think the only reason that he came back is because Adam Schefter broke his retirement and he didn't get to do it himself like he did this morning?
No, I don't think he's that petty. I don't think he cares that much to do that. I think he was conflicted a year ago, and everybody kept asking him about it. There was all this speculation. So I think he just felt like not having to continue to answer questions about it, and then probably almost immediately regretted it afterwards. Plus, there's also all these rumors that he was trying to go to the Miami Dolphins and get ownership and be with Sean Payton or whatever.
Right.
And so, I think maybe stepping away or retiring from the Bucs the way he did last year might have been part of the equation.
Now, Ross, the last thing on Brady, obviously the guy was a teammate of yours for about a year and a half. Are you selfishly mad that he retired? Because last year you told me that the only thing your daughters really cared about your football career was that you snapped the ball to Tom Brady. So are you selfishly upset that you can't, claim that the GOAT, the guy who you played with, is still in the league?
Joe, you got a good memory, first of all. Second of all, my daughters are starting to ask a lot of questions like, how come you never went to a Pro Bowl, Daddy? How come you're not in the Hall of Fame? Because I went to Baselli's Hall of Fame celebration, induction, and party this summer.
Right.
They want to know why I wasn't a Hall of Famer. They want to know why I didn't go to the Pro Bowl. And it's like, well, girls, because I wasn't good enough. I wasn't that good. But no, I was actually selfishly hoping Brady kept playing, although I'm a little conflicted on that. Yes, it would have been great if he kept playing for my benefit, because on some level, the longer Brady played, since I was a teammate of his and snapped the ball to him and stuff, kind of keeps me more relevant. People like you want to talk to me about him and talk about him and what makes him so special and all that stuff. Plus my daughters, every year they start a new school year, and it's like they can tell all the boys in class, everybody in class, that their daddy was teammates with Tom Brady. That's pretty cool in central Pennsylvania, man. Really cool. The flip side of that is I didn't really enjoy watching him play this year. It was a bummer. He wasn't playing great. The O-line around him stunk. Their team wasn't very good. And I don't think any of us that ever played with him and like him, which is pretty much everybody's ever played with him, I don't think any of us ever wanted to see him perform like that, which is to say not well and to struggle. That was not fun to watch.
Yeah, I think whether you cheered for or against him for the past few decades, it definitely was a disappointing way to see a guy who was on top of the world just 2 years ago kind of, go out with an 8-10 season, factoring in that playoff loss. It definitely wasn't the way that many of us expected Tom to go out. But Ross, I want to flip it to one of the competing teams coming up in a week and a half in the Super Bowl. You spend a lot of time covering this Eagles team very closely. So from your coverage of them going back to the preseason, what was maybe the biggest indicator you saw that this team was for real and this team was going to cause a lot of trouble this year?
I think in the preseason during training camp, I started having people tell me that certain players were better than they thought they would be.
Mhm.
And this is even people within the organization. Like, they knew Hassan Reddick was good. They didn't know he was this good
Yeah.
when they signed him. They knew Bradbury was good. They didn't know Bradbury was this good. They knew A.J. Brown was really good. I think he's even better than they realized when they traded for him from Tennessee. So you start to hear Kaiser White. It was one of those weird years, Joe, where it seemed like every move Howie Roseman made and every guy they brought in was actually somehow even better than they anticipated. They traded for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and he led the NFL in interceptions, and he missed 5 games. I mean,
Yeah.
like, they just listen. I grew up outside of Philly, diehard Eagles fans. They never wanted me. You see the helmets behind me, Joe. I played for 5 teams. None of them are the Eagles. But to this day, this is, I would say, easily the best Eagles team I've ever seen. Now, they might
Oh
lose
yeah.
next Sunday. You know, they might lose to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and then obviously people won't talk about that. But their roster, I mean, when's the last time a team had the best offensive line and defensive line in the NFL?
It's
When's the last
ridiculous what they
time
do.
that same team, yeah, when's the last time that same team had the best wide receivers in franchise history? Probably the best corners in franchise history,
Yeah.
and MVP candidate quarterback. I mean, they're just loaded, dude.
Yeah, I mean, and just to really, further hammer home how dominant they are, when Jalen Hurts plays, people, because they look at them and, all right, 14-3. Well, the Chiefs were also 14-3. But when Jalen Hurts plays 16-1 this year, the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, they're not just the 1 seed. They're not just the best team in the country. They're one of the more dominant teams we've ever seen, at least myself in my 24 years. 16-1 with their starting quarterback out there. It's ridiculous. I'm glad you brought up Tony Baselli, though, a couple minutes ago, by the way, because I want to shift gears to the Hall of Fame. We know the 15 finalists, and last year we actually spent some time talking about Baselli, thinking would last year finally be the year? It was. They got it right. He's inducted. Looking at this year's class, we've got the 15 finalists. I want to ask about another O-lineman, a first ballot guy, Joe Thomas. What kind of chance do you think he has to get inducted on his first ballot? I know that they don't like to put too many first ballot guys in the same class. This year you've got Darrelle Revis, Joe Thomas. Both should be surefire guys. You think Thomas gets in?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, the guy never missed a snap. And I think actually, weirdly, you know how Baselli was kind of hurt probably by the fact that he played for the Jaguars and had a shorter career, and it's the Jaguars. I think Joe Thomas being the face of the Browns for that long, and quite frankly, Joe, them being that bad for that long, I think that plays in his favor. I really do. Like, usually it's like, how many Super Bowls did they win? You know, how many games they win. I think the fact that he only ever played in Cleveland and that they were that terrible actually plays into his favor. I really do.
Huh.
I think he'll get on the first ballot because I think he deserves it. So does Revis. I mean, both those guys, I'd be very surprised if they're not first ballot guys.
It'd be interesting to see. I mean, I know usually it seems like most years we get one first ballot guy and then other guys who have quote unquote paid their dues. But I'm with you. I mean, how do you leave Revis or Joe Thomas off the ballot? It would be ridiculous to me.
Very, very hard. I agree.
Now, Ross, for this one, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of thinking. Obviously, every week when you're with Westwood One, you're going stadium to stadium, covering all different teams, all different games. I want a top 3 ranking from you here this year. Give me your top 3 tuck spreads, best press box food that you've seen in the NFL all season.
I love this because this is branding. And this is it's funny. My parents paid for me to go to Princeton, and #1 school in the country, by the way. And when most people meet them, they say, "Oh yeah, oh you're Ross Tucker's mom. He's the guy that does the press box food videos, right?" And my parents are just like horrified that they paid for me to be that.
Right.
It's
All those
hilarious.
60-hour work weeks your dad and your mom put in just for you to be putting out videos of buffets every Sunday.
You know what? I think you send your kids to college so that they have opportunities to do what they want in life. And I am absolutely doing what I want. And for sure, posting the press box food is part of that. So number one was the Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
Ooh.
Just so good, bro. I mean, by far the best Thanksgiving spread I've ever been a part of. Sorry, mom. Sorry, grandma. Sorry to my wife. Sorry to my mother-in-law. But just incredible, man. Like, I can't even tell you how good it was. They had a different spread at halftime, a different spread post-game. I mean, I could have just lived there that night. It was unreal. So Cowboys on Thanksgiving for sure. Then I would say Lambeau. I did the Monday night game against the Rams. I'm very partial to Lambeau because they have the best salad bar in the league.
Mm.
They always have a terrific, and I mean terrific entree, whatever it is. But Joe, it's hard to beat those two brats I have at halftime. I mean, it's hard to beat that. They're so good. You probably shouldn't eat two brats in 4 minutes, but I'm not a mere mortal here.
Putting up
And
Joey
then
Chestnut
the
numbers.
last one, that's tough because the Bills against the Bengals was so good. They had beef on weck, mac and cheese, and
Oof.
wings from La Nova. But then the Eagles on Sunday had filet mignon and mashed potatoes and pulled pork and sausage paella. So I'm going to go with a tie. Both those teams clearly stepped it up in the playoffs, the Bills and the Eagles, at least in the press box.
Yeah, I mean, geez, even though the two games, Bills, Bengals, and Eagles, Niners, weren't the best games, it sounds like it was the best eating you've done this postseason, man. Not bad, not bad.
It was excellent. I was very happy.
That's awesome. Ross, look, I know you're on a crunch, man. Before I let you go, Valentine's Day is 2 days after the big game this year. I know that you're here with my front page story. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I know I told you about last year. It's taken off, man. Everyone's realizing that it's by far the best gift to get your significant other. Like, what else are you going to get them? Flowers or chocolates? To be able to talk to one of their writers for 5 minutes, give them a few quotes about how great your wife is or whatever. They write the most unbelievable story. It's framed, looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper, beautiful. And just being able to say to her, hey, babe, I want to do something special for you this year. So I had a story written about you. Like, that just sounds awesome to tell somebody you had a story written about them. And then when they actually look at it, read the quotes from you or maybe the kids or whatever, they cry every time, Joe. You're young, so you don't realize this yet. But if you get your wife to or whoever, your significant other, to cry happy tears, you're doing something. myfrontpagestory.com. Trust me, myfrontpagestory.com.
Make sure you check it out. Make sure you follow Ross Tucker on Twitter and follow. How many podcasts are you doing now, Ross?
5. Yeah. Ross Tucker Football Podcast is daily. Even Money is the very successful betting one. Fantasy Feast for the fantasy folks. College Draft, which gets you ready for the NFL Draft. And then Andrew Brandt does the Business of Sports podcast as well. So just trying to be like you, Joe.
A media savant, I believe, is what I called you last time I had you on. Ross Tucker, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'll see you guys next week live from Radio Row ahead of the Super Bowl down in Arizona.